Welcome to the Milk Bottle Shopify e-commerce podcast, brought to you by Milk Bottle Labs, one of the world's top-rated accredited Shopify experts. Our founder, Keith Matthews, interviews Shopify folk to share as many Shopify tips and tricks as possible. This podcast is kindly supported by our two favourite Shopify tools we install in every store, Rewind.io and Klaviyo. Rewind is the leading backup solution for Shopify stores. Let's just say it's the cheapest insurance policy you'll ever get for your Shopify store, protecting all of your valuable data. And Klaviyo is our preferred automated email solution and is trusted by over 65,000 brands worldwide. Keep listening. We have some special offers for our podcast fans. Now over to your host, Keith Matthews.
Hey folks, welcome back. Today I'm delighted to join Colin Creagh from Klarna. Colin is a former employee of Corn Market and eBay, and he's Irish-based, and he now leads the Klarna team based in Ireland. Klarna recently launched Pay in 3, which is a buy now, pay later product, and he's here to share with us the story of Klarna and exactly what Klarna can do for Shopify merchants. Colin, how are you?
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks very much for having me, Keith.
Fantastic. Colin, I noticed that you are the head of Klarna in Ireland. Well done on your recent launch.
Thanks very much. It's been a interesting journey. I started in Klarna in 2017 with actually the idea of launching and supporting the business here, and lots of other things got in the way. Other markets were prioritised, and thankfully we finally reached a point now in our journey where Ireland was next on the list. So yeah, it's great and it's really exciting. It's been so well received already. Lots of media coverage, and we're very, very hopeful of what's going to be happening over the next few years.
Great, and we'll talk in detail about the offering, about I suppose the principle of buy now, pay later. Let's just go back to the start. I was looking through your career and eBay pops up, and eBay is a company that is not... it's a wonderful, wonderful organisation who in many ways defined e-commerce. I read a book, it must be 15 years ago, called The eBay Effect, and it actually influenced my interest in e-commerce. What did you do at the time in eBay?
It was fascinating because I've been in, the first part of my career was in retail financial services with a company called Corn Market, so dealing with a lot of public sector workers, pension advice, etc. And the financial crisis hit and there was lots of consolidation. I was in the middle of doing an MBA at the time, and a career opportunity came up to join eBay. And to be frank, I had no experience with e-commerce at that point, but they were looking for commercially minded leaders to come in and help create new propositions, because they effectively had created this amazing marketplace that was connecting with millions of people, but they needed to bring retailers in and having that brand experience. And rather than it being a secondhand, end of line type of marketplace, they effectively wanted to completely change the way that people saw marketplaces. So yeah, I led a team of fantastic account managers across Europe, and that's where my journey started, and it's been amazing. But I think what it taught me from an e-commerce perspective is just that idea of giving amazing experience to end users, because if you can connect with an audience in the right way the first time and giving them that amazing experience, they're going to continue to come back to you and do more business. So certainly that was a very valuable lesson. But to be frank, I hadn't, as I said, I had no background in e-commerce, so it was thrown into the deep end from the very start.
So you learned a lot.
Well, it's interesting now because I'm even, looking at people who are coming into the business now, and they've had the opportunity to study for a degree in e-commerce, and they've got digital backgrounds, they've got analytics backgrounds, engineering backgrounds, psychology backgrounds. So it is an amazing business to be in because it covers so many different facets of experience and expertise.
One thing that really surprises me, especially in the last few years, that when people talk about e-commerce, obviously, Shopify and BigCommerce and Magento and all of the platforms are regularly mentioned, along with the banks, along with Klarna, and, different ways to pay. But eBay never gets a mention. And in a lot of ways, like one of the most beneficial changes anybody can make to a store is, having a reviews app on your store, for example, or in Amazon, if you can keep your reviews at 5 stars, obviously you'll sell more. It was actually eBay that developed that whole principle of customer service and genuine reviews. I sometimes think they've got a bit lost in it, even though the platform is wildly successful. Mm-hmm. But I still use eBay, and I wonder actually, now that we're talking, do the generation behind us use it? But anyway, they obviously do, because it's still a successful company. And you're also lecturing in fashion retail.
Yeah.
Tell me more. I mean, you're very well dressed, but I wouldn't put you as a fashion expert.
Fashionista.
Fashionista.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was off the back of connections that I'd made, because my career sort of evolved in eBay, and it became part of the PayPal world and the Magento world. So it gave me a great in-depth connection across the full customer journey. And when I left eBay and joined a business called Dita Eyewear, it was effectively a luxury eyewear business based out of the US, but they had operations in Dublin. And I was tasked with the job of creating a global e-commerce platform. So all of the connections that I had made during my eBay career brought to life and being able to offer a direct-to-consumer proposition. But what actually happened was that we were based in Fumbally, just around the corner from the Technological University of Dublin, and we were looking for a project to try and get market assessments done, and we were under pressure for staff, etc. So I'd had connections with the team there, and there was a master's program going on, and I had offered to say, well, look, could we bring in some interns for a short project? And that worked out, and they delivered the results, and it was great, and great to give something back. And then through that relationship, the college was just saying, look, we want to build an e-commerce offering as part of our, at the time it was a diploma in fashion buying, and now they wanted to bring it to the next level. So I effectively supported them in terms of creating that e-commerce module. So yeah, I've been involved in that for the last 4 years, and the module itself is highly regarded. There's a lot of people who are hired by Primark and Brand Thomas and Arnott's, etc. So it's highly regarded, and a lot of international attention as well. So I love it, and it's great because what it does is that I suppose it's interesting now to see e-commerce in an academic view, even though for you and me both, we're as practitioners, we're sort of doing it every day.
Yeah.
But there's a whole cohort of people coming behind who need to bring the academic but also the practical together. So I like to think I bring the practical element to it.
But isn't it very foresightful by the university to actually recognise that an artistic individual who's studying fashion actually should be going out the door with e-commerce experience? It's a big reflection on the industry as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think fundamentally the course is around the whole fashion buying piece. So there is a lot of science and data behind it. So while there's a creative element, there's also a lot of hard data behind it. But obviously a recognition, the fact that people do need to understand that there are channels that you need to connect with, whether it's in-store or online. And yeah, you're right. I mean, for it to be a compelling offering for graduates to come in a master's program, it needs to have that full flavour.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose 20 years ago, you would have studied fashion and then maybe attempted to try and get a job with the big brands. But now you can actually create the e-commerce platform and just go direct to market yourself.
Yeah.
It's wonderful opportunity. For the listeners who don't know who Klarna are, I know exactly who they are. I really love the brand. Somebody has put a lot of thought into it. Any brand that has had a relationship with Snoop Dogg, I have to say, I am very respectful of that. And if you have any Snoop Dogg stories, feel free to share. But your brand, it's just, I think it nails it. Your service is absolutely top class. You've a very influential and colourful CEO. I've read his work and I've seen him been interviewed, and he's very passionate about Klarna. So for those of you who don't know, who are Klarna?
So basically, we are a global payments and shopping service, and we were founded in 2005 out of Stockholm, and we've evolved from a payments offering into a global shopping experience. So Ireland, when we launched Ireland in November, it was the 18th market. And that complemented an existing portfolio of 250,000 retailers that we're working with and 90 million users. In fact, we're very close to hitting the 100th million user very, very shortly. And what we're about is giving people an alternative way to make payments online, but also doing it in a fun and engaging and transparent and safe environment. With the incumbents that have been there before Klarna and coexist with Klarna, how we differentiate ourselves is the fact that we're everywhere. So whether you're online, in-store, in-app, Klarna is there as an engaging brand. It's a fun brand. You talked about Snoop Dogg. I mean, we completely changed the way that people think about payments, and that brand awareness is driven by quirky, fun, sometimes provocative campaigns. And so that then cuts through all the noise.
Yeah.
And so when people see that pink Klarna logo, they know it counts for something: security, trust, and fun.
But I have observed, you've made bold moves in terms of marketing, but it's not disrespectful. You're reaching out and you're kind of going over the odds to the way most brands would probably be a little conservative. But you're not conservative, but at the same time, you're not pushing any agenda into anybody's face as such. It's actually quite respectful, even though it's different. Is that?
Yeah, and actually it's a really good point, because it's a constant debate we have. Our chief marketing officer is a very dynamic guy, and you can obviously think about, when you're selling a service like payments, you can talk about the functional side of it and talk about all the features and benefits. But the view is that we want to create an awareness around a fun brand. So it's that halo effect. When you see our advertising, you don't necessarily know what Klarna is or what we're about. It's just, oh yeah, I recognize that brand. But then when you go to your favorite store, whether it's online or an actual physical store, and you see Klarna, then you start making the connection. And then once that connection is there, people are then able, because it's so easy to use the service and it's so customer friendly, then people can continue to use it. And so that is where it resonates more with people, because they look at traditional banks, with the greatest respect to them. They don't connect in the same way. And, an interesting piece of research that we see in each of the markets that we're launching in is that people are no longer, they're moving away from using traditional credit cards, and debit card is a big part of the way that they shop. But there are limitations to what you can do with a debit card. The credit card experience has been that, you reach your threshold, your limit, and then it's okay, well, now you've got to start paying back fees and charges associated with it. And people are tired of that. They want something different. They want something that they can effectively say, well, look, this doesn't cost me anything to use this product. I'm using it responsibly. Klarna is lending responsibly, so it's a good mix in terms of that relationship that we have with our end user.
Yeah, absolutely. So in Ireland, you've launched Pay in 3. So what is Pay in 3?
Yeah, so it's one of our product suite, which is effectively a 3-part installment plan. It's a customer who, let's say, makes a purchase of €150 item. They make €50 payment on purchase. Then 30 days later, they make another €50 payment, and then the final €50 payment on day 60. So effectively, it's 3 equal installments over 60 days, and no fees or charges, no interest, no late fees. It's effectively whatever you purchase, that's the cost of it. And so how we make our money is that we charge a small transaction fee to the merchant, and in the same way as they pay a transaction fee or any other payment product that they offer. And so we do not make money from people who don't pay us back. And that's really important, because the message is that it's about responsible lending and responsible spending. It is a credit product, right? So let's be clear.
Yeah.
But what it does is that it gives people that choice of saying, well, look, if I had to spend €90, do I want to spend €90 straight away, or would I prefer the option of paying it off in 3 equal installments?
So the perception that I would have had before I kind of read into the detail is that I would have thought that this was only applicable to stores that were selling furniture, for example, and you were buying a couch for €1,500 and you wanted to buy it in October instead of January, and you wanted to split it out over 3 payments. But in talking to you and interacting with your team, the average order value of the store that you guys would probably recommend it for, is it $60 or $80 plus?
Yeah.
Like, I think the perception, when you say buy now, pay later, first thing is people think about interest and penalty payments, and you've addressed that. But it's actually not necessarily for large payments.
No, and our as you say, like the average order value, depending on the payment product that we have. I mean, there's a 30-day option, the 60-day option, which we talked about. There's also options that we have where you can spread payments over 48 months. But the idea is that when you're talking about how people are shopping and the experience that they have, that idea of alternative payments and installments doesn't matter whether it's a €1,500 furniture item or a €60 pair of shoes or dress. It gives people the option to manage their finances, to be able to manage their cash flow in a way which in the past, traditional finance was you fill out these lengthy forms, you've got to tell somebody, what you had for breakfast effectively, and all properly. That was that's the way you have to make sure that your customers are eligible for it.
Yeah.
But we've moved on.
Yeah.
Digital experience, real-time technology, assessing individuals' eligibility, all create this opportunity for people to be able to have that decision there and then. Yes, I'm eligible for it. I can make that purchase. And so they walk away knowing that they have had a great experience and knowing that, installment it's not for big ticket item, it's for everyday items. And that's where Klarna is changing that landscape in Ireland in particular, as we've done in the other markets. In the UK, for example, we have 15 million users. We have 2 million active users every month. So this is not like a one-off payment type of engagement. This is everyday shopping experiences across multiple verticals. And what I mean by that is there are people who will buy their clothes, they'll pay for their holidays, they will pay for experiences as gifts. So everything that you can think of that you're buying online or even in store, you can use installments as part of that, except for groceries. We're not there yet.
Okay. Let's just take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Rewind.io is the leading backup solution for your Shopify store. Did you know that there's no way of recovering lost data? If your store is gaining traction, app developers or multiple staff may enter your store, and there's absolutely no way of fixing human error. Rewind.io allows you to rewind your store back to its original state, so you can reduce your business risk immediately with the Rewind app. It's so easy and is the cheapest and best insurance policy you'll ever need for your Shopify store. Get your first month for free by simply replying to your first email from Rewind and mention this podcast. Now, regular listeners will know I love Klaviyo. It's the single biggest revenue generator I've ever seen across hundreds and hundreds of Shopify stores I've been in. Klaviyo's data-driven marketing automation platform is sophisticated enough to power those legendary campaigns from the big brands you admire, but they make it simple, they make it easy, and they make it fast. To get started with a free trial of Klaviyo, visit klaviyo.com/milkbottle. That's klaviyo.com/milkbottle. And Colin, you mentioned the domestic banks and then Revolut and N26 are the challenger banks. I've been using N26 for quite a long time, and I carried out my first chargeback 2 weeks ago. Never did it before. And the experience was quite unbelievable. N26 told me that there was a fraudulent transaction. I marked it as fraud. It automatically cancelled the card, and then they posted a new card out to me, and the chargeback was dealt with. The difference in service and facility at the moment that's available to, I won't reference the younger generation, but there is a generation of people that are growing up where e-commerce is just their native way to shop. And this new format of payment, like Klarna Pay in 3 or N26 and Revolut, it's just the way people operate. It's standard, it's the norm. So one thing that I thought of as you were talking there, is it correct to say then that 20 years ago when people were looking for credit, they were probably looking for credit because they didn't quite have enough money to buy it. But I'm getting in the impression, just reading between the lines, that people are now buying in 3 and paying later because they're just more clever about how they manage their money. And it's actually nothing to do with not having it. Is that a logical conclusion?
It is, absolutely. And it came out of the research that we did as part of the launch in Ireland, because we did a lot of panel discussions and focus groups. And it's amazing to see just there is a whole cohort of Irish consumers that are just averse to credit. And, they've seen their parents go through tough times and, challenges around making ends meet, etc. So this is not about, you're absolutely right to call that out. This is not about giving access to lines of credit to people who can't afford things. This is about giving people choice. And certainly when we look at it, every time somebody looks to use Klarna, we do an eligibility assessment. So every time, unlike a credit card, where you're given a line of credit, let's say of £1,000, €1,000, you can spend to that limit. And then after that, you have to deal with repayments and charges, etc. Unlike credit cards, we will do a real-time assessment every time. So even if somebody has a history with us, even if somebody has a history of payments with us, if they have reached a certain limit that we have set, or if they have missed any payments from a Klarna perspective, we'll actually deny them the service until they show that they're able to meet their needs, meet their repayments. So what we have is, and this is coming back to the responsible lending and responsible spending piece, we've even got special technology in place where late night spending is being avoided. So, this idea of coming home at night and
pressing the buy button.
Pressing the buy button, and then all of a sudden, that remorseful purchase.
Yeah.
So that technology is in there to be to make sure that we have the right level of measures in place to avoid overspending. But it also means that within the offering, the Klarna app is a big part of our proposition, because it gives people the visibility of what they're spending.
Before we go to the app, and you just gave me a demo of it, and again, it's the future, really. In terms of the customer experience, let's just say that we had a conversation before I pressed record, and you mentioned, for example, Smith's Toys, one of the biggest toy retailers in Europe, the biggest in Ireland, and I think the biggest in the UK as well. And you were logged into your Klarna account, and then you went to make a purchase. So let's just pretend I don't personally have a Klarna account. Mm-hmm. What happens?
So effectively, you download the app from the App Store, Google Store. You go in and verify the account. So we would do a verification in terms of name, address, email, date of birth, etc. If we need to, we might ask you to provide ID, so you can just scan photo ID into the app, and then effectively you can then browse within the app in any store. And so the browse function effectively opens a window into any website, and you can pick any product in that website. And then we have a special one-time card feature, which creates a Visa card number, and you copy paste that Visa card number into the checkout of the website. And that experience is pretty seamless and takes about 90 seconds to do. For the merchant, they just see a normal card transaction. And from the consumer's point of view, they're able to spread the payments. So we have, as part of the app, the customer would put in a funding source in the same way that you have with your Revolut card or N26 card. So that you'd have a card in the background that would act as a funding source. So then we just collect the first payment on purchase, and then we go back to that card every 30 days to complete the transactions. And then the customer, every time they go into a separate account, into a separate website, they create a one-time card each time, which is effectively, it's hugely popular, particularly for shoppers who where Klarna isn't available in the checkout as normal. Yeah. But this is part of what we're doing in Ireland with the team, is to engage with merchants and talk to them about the benefits of having Klarna in their checkout.
Yes. So if we just try and pivot to the merchant then, if the merchant has joined up to Klarna, well then when that customer is on the app and signed up to Klarna, the transaction just goes through without that virtual credit card. Is that right?
Exactly.
Virtual debit card.
Yeah, exactly. And the experience again, and this is really important because a lot of merchants are thinking, okay, well, I'm losing control of my customer, or I'm taken off site and there's an off-site experience. No, all of this is when you're with an integrated merchant, and we can talk about that in a few minutes in more detail. But effectively, it's a 2 or 3 step process for the customer to complete the purchase, and so it's much easier. So what we find is that customers who are regular Klarna users, they will tend to shop more often because it's available as a feature in the checkout. And
they'll go straight to the Klarna app to do their shopping.
Well, they could do, or they can go just direct to the merchant's own site, where they go to the checkout and they see the pink Klarna badge in the checkout because it's an integrated offering. So the idea is we use this word ubiquity, which is a fancy word for we're everywhere. So it means that the customer can engage with their favorite brands and retailers, whether it's through the Klarna app or whether it's directly to their favorite merchants, where Klarna is already integrated as a payment option.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. Before we get to the benefits of the app, and I suppose if listeners are in the business and they don't have the Klarna app, let's just go through the steps. If you are a business, let's just say you're on Shopify or Shopify Plus, and you don't have Klarna on your store, what's the process to do that, to get it on?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because actually we've done a lot of work with Shopify to make it as easy as possible for merchants to do that, because Shopify we recognize as a real powerhouse in terms of e-commerce. And so when we think about so you go into the payments tab in your dashboard, and you see alternative payment options, and then Klarna is listed as a payment option in the APM dashboard. So you click a button, and that effectively then launches the page for you to add in the Klarna API link. Now, to get the Klarna API code, you need to have a Klarna account. So what that means is that effectively you set up a merchant account. And this is where my team and I would be able to facilitate that conversation where you have a contract between the merchant and Klarna. It's like opening up any merchant bank account. You know, we look for KYC, AML details, etc. We then issue you that with API code.
So that's very important because you're effectively setting up a legitimate account from a banking institution. So like we spent the last 15 minutes explaining how convenient it was, but you guys are equally as serious as all of the traditional banks within Central Bank of Ireland regulation in terms of setting up the merchant the first time. Isn't that right?
Correct.
Because there's two sides to this. They're setting up the merchant, which is effectively the Shopify or Magento or BigCommerce user. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the consumer who have to be set up to actually make the payment.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've made the process to physically add it to the site as easy as possible. And of course, the customer goes through a normal process in terms of adding the merchant account, opening the merchant account.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look, it all depends. Some merchants will have a very simple setup in terms of how their corporate structure is. Other merchants are a little bit more complicated. So, but again, as I said, that's why we're here in person in the team, based in Dublin, with a team that's here to work with the merchant base.
Can you explain the overall benefit? Like, if a merchant is to say to you, well, why would I use Klarna? I mean, I can see through the app and through the internet that you're introducing merchants that are using Klarna to consumers through search, and you're also basically giving them an opportunity and you're giving them a shop window. Can you explain how that works?
So if we think about the customer journey where the browsing experience will start presumably on Google Shopping, for argument's sake, and so Klarna now is as much a publisher as we are a payments option. So, you know, that shopping experience, that comparison shopping service now actually includes Klarna. So you more often now will see Klarna having featured products in Google Shopping. So that then will link through then effectively you start that customer journey of engaging with them on Google. It then connects through into landing pages or via the merchant emails, and then finally into the customer website, into the merchant website. So we're supporting merchants in terms of generating that traffic and getting eyeballs onto the site through the Klarna network. So that effectively then means that as they land into a website, they're already then starting that consideration. So when they're browsing and they're not really clear about what they want to buy, they just love that browsing experience, they start adding to basket. The technology is there for an on-site messaging feature, which shows the value of the basket and then spread into installments. So it's helping them to consider how they're going to make the purchase. And traditionally what would happen is you effectively use the checkout like a wish list. But in fact, Klarna now has a wish list built into the Klarna app. So there could be another route into the website where customers are looking at, let's say, their Christmas shopping. So they're thinking about the gifts that they want to buy from their favorite stores. So they can create their own, a bit like Pinterest. So you can create a wish list within the Klarna app. And then what you're able to do is with the integrated merchants, we're able to, if there's any price drop or any new stock availability, we can actually ping the end user to say, great news, there's 10% off that item that you have on your wish list. So this is generating ways for people to then be aware of the fact that that item that they're wish listing is now actively available. And so that is another trigger point to get to the merchant website. So Klarna is effectively facilitating that to push that to our merchant network. So the value to a merchant is the fact that we've got all of these Klarna users who are ready and willing to engage with brands, and they might be coming across a brand for the first time because they see that brand offering Klarna. Then there is that peace of mind. I know I can use it here, and it's a very easy process. And similarly for merchants who are who have a very steady supply of loyal customers, you'll find by offering them Klarna, it gives them better customer service, customer value by offering them installments. And I'm thinking, if you think about car parts and accessories, very simple example, right? Nobody goes out of their way to go and buy a set of brake pads or items like that going for their NCT. All of a sudden, you now have the ability to, it's what we call a distressed purchase, because you're now being forced to do it. Yeah. And there's other categories of products that fall into that.
So you mean an expense that you probably can afford, but you didn't budget for it. And you know what? if I can pay in 3 installments, I'll do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So again, it's how you position it for people, because it means that flexibility that we talked about earlier on, and just the budgeting tool effectively is available to the consumer.
Now, in the event that the customer cannot pay, I'm assuming that you're underwriting that payment, and the merchant, in the case of, let's say, the Shopify store owner, they get paid.
Yeah. So the proposition is that we will take on the fraud and the repayment risk, and that again is the peace of mind that the merchant has in terms of that engagement is effectively risk-free when they're working with domestic consumers or consumers in overseas markets. So that piece gives them it mitigates the risk. If we find a customer can't pay, we have teams of customer service staff that will help talk through that process. So it's what we call a vulnerable customer. We, as much as possible, try and avoid a situation like this arising, hence why the eligibility checking is so important before they make a purchase. But
did you say earlier on that the user, the consumer, that their account is checked on a regular basis? Is it every month, or is it based on transactions? Is there an algorithm behind that? Is it?
Yeah, so it's every time they go to use Klarna as a service,
okay,
we'll do the lookup. So we'll have a look at purchase history, repayment history, and all that. And so what it means then that if a customer can't pay, well then we're in the business of helping people to repay. I mean, obviously we have to take that risk.
Yeah.
But in terms of then being able to talk them through that process, we were able to, if they want to extend their repayment, that facility is there. What's really important in all this is that the customer is never charged any more in that situation, because there's lots of other models that are out there where that is the case. In Klarna's situation, that does not exist. So we're fortunate in that our risk models are so optimized that it's not an issue for us. Bad debt is there; it's a reality, but it's nothing like what it is with, let's say, the credit card companies or other providers.
But I mean, at the end of the day, you entered Ireland a few months ago, and did you say you had 15 million users in the UK?
Yeah.
So you have data and risk analysis and so much experience based on prior transactions that you're optimizing the system all of the time. So you're protecting everybody. I mean, you mentioned there the analysis and the risk assessment of the consumer, but it's interesting because if you open a merchant account at one of the banks, your KYC is supposed to be checked every 12 months. And it doesn't happen because a lot of the banks don't even have the time to go back out to every customer every 12 months. But you're doing it pretty much in real time for the consumer. So I can't imagine any other protection or level of security that you could ever carry out.
Yeah, I just think it makes sense because of, historically, because of the bad news and the bad association with credit. It's really important that it's seen as a positive. I mean, credit is there for a reason, okay? But it needs to be managed and controlled in the right way. And why, for example, there's a lot of countries bringing in legislation around buy now, later. And I mean, we're a fully regulated bank. So, we welcome legislation and that enhances the customer protection. But to the point around the merchant as well and the KYC, as I said, we've 250,000 merchants, and we have a line of funds that's been remitted to those merchants every day. So naturally, we have to make sure that there are checks and balances in there, because we have to make sure, from a bank perspective, that we have the liquidity, etc., to be able to lend to people. Yeah. So we're doubling down on both the consumer eligibility, but equally with the merchants as well.
Yeah, you've got strict rules on both sides, which is good. I just want to go back to Snoop Dogg. Have you ever met him? Have you ever met him?
No, but he seems to be everywhere.
If he's everywhere, why haven't you met him?
Yeah, I know. I have to say that was great fun. I mean, when they first launched that, we were just, this is wild. Yeah. I mean, imagine a bank, aligning with a brand ambassador like Snoop Dogg, and I mean, it generated so many media items and impressions, and it was fantastic. And actually, part of the deal was that he changed his name to Smooth Dog. Right?
He is serious.
And absolutely. And so the idea is we use the phrase smooth payments, and that's
You're right. I remember that.
So it's smooth, spelt with 3 O's, and the idea is smooth. So it's coming across now as like velvet. But it's so that again was all part of the media and PR campaigns just to raise that awareness. So a lot of the imagery that we use to your question and point around the marketing is all around that. What does smooth mean to you? What is and what that means is it's frictionless payments. But we've kind of, with the greatest respect to Snoop Dogg, we've kind of moved on from that.
I heard that, but I had to mention it.
So it's now ASAP Rocky.
Yeah. Well, I don't know who that is, but I know who Snoop Dogg is. So I'm letting my age go here. But fascinating conversation, and I have to say you've explained it very well. So I'm delighted that you joined us. Before we go, Klarna's new media services division, what does that do?
Yeah, it's I suppose that this idea where we're both a payments platform and a shopping experience. That whole shopping experience, if you think about the effort and the cost that goes into generating and acquiring new customers, effectively what we've now done is we are a publisher. So content, dynamic content, affiliate marketing campaigns, all of that is now built into a service that we have as part of our technology stack. We've done, thankfully, we're in a position to acquire some amazing technology partners, including live streaming partners. So if you can think of the next generation of shopping is a combination of the QVC channel meets TikTok. So if you brought the two of those together as channels and then have that as an interactive experience where customers can make a purchase there and then, this is where we're bringing that all to life as part of that Klarna offering. So we did it with Macy's earlier this year, and again this was hugely attractive because again it's really engaging. People couldn't get in store to the same extent, but they could have a really immersive experience on their phones and mobile devices. And while they're engaging with that brand and the influencer who was showcasing the event, you're still in a position to be able to purchase the items because you're inspiring people. So all of that technology is built into the Klarna stack. So when we talk to your clients, Keith, we would talk about, okay, well, what can we do to start drive? Okay, so the ability to transact is now there. Okay, so box ticked. That's not enough. You need to be able to generate traffic and demand. And so that's where we bring that other lever into the conversation.
Highly beneficial. And I suppose the bigger the brand is, the more they'll probably get out of it. Is that because, does that make sense?
I would argue that actually we've heard this word, the democratization of e-commerce.
Of e-commerce, yeah.
Right? And so our solutions are there for all merchants. Yeah. So, it just gives everybody a level playing field.
Colin, I'll thank you again. Absolutely wonderful. We'll put links to Klarna and anything that you referenced in the show notes. And thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Take care.
Thanks for listening. All of our episodes are available on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. A special note of appreciation goes to our sponsors, Rewind.io, the leading backup solution for Shopify store owners. Get your first month of Rewind for free by simply responding to any welcome email once you sign up for your free trial on Rewind.io. And of course, to the email platform Klaviyo, which helps Shopify brands easily create personalized, multi-channel marketing campaigns using your most powerful asset, your customer data. To get started with a free trial of Klaviyo, visit klaviyo.com/milkbottle. That's KLAVIYO.com/milkbottle. If you're a Shopify user with an exciting story to tell, reach out to the team on podcast@milkbottlelabs.com. Until the next time, take care.